Somebody won this weekend. Somebody won this. That's good.
Ring light.
It is. So many issues.
After this game, it was not Lamar Jackson in the air. It was Lamar Jackson in this run offense on the ground. I don't know if the Chiefs, honestly, I wonder if the Chiefs were, it doesn't feel like they were as prepared as they should have been for this. And that's kind of surprising. You know, it kind of seemed like maybe the Ravens were adjusting some things a little bit in their offensive scheme. You saw what they tried to do early on against the Raiders.
Yep.
And what happened? They came back to the identity that has won them a lot of football games the last couple of years. They just ran the football down the mouths of the Kansas City Chiefs without really any level of effort, you know, to stop them. Not questioning the effort, but just overall, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the frustrating part is when you watch the game, you know when you're missing tackles and guys are picking up huge chunk and 30, 40-yard plays. It's another thing when they're just getting 10 and 12 yards because guys are either not in the right run fits, as you said, they're not getting off blocks. Chris Jones playing out on the end, and they kept showing it. And I'm not going to pretend to know what the responsibilities are, because I was asking you all the questions. Like, why don't they just do a scrape exchange? Like, just don't have him guessing. If he can't read it, just tell him to go. and at least mix it up to try to do something different. Because if we're just going to sit there and read, they're going to keep calling that play because they know what we're doing. But again, that's the very simplistic way I have of looking at it. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be breaking this down. The film comes out Tuesday, the All-22. Everybody's going to be wanting to break all that down. But we have to get into some of the stuff on the offense. And I know we always talk about these stats on the positive side, but some streaks broke. We talk about Patrick Mahomes. So much was made about him not throwing an interception in September. Yep. He finally got bit for trying to make a little bit too much happen when it wasn't there. And then obviously lost in the month of September for the first time in his career. And then obviously Chiefs not going undefeated. And now I'm always going to be the glass half full kind of person. It is week 2. Yeah. There's a lot of young guys on this roster that got to go into a tough environment in a primetime game and go up against a team like Baltimore, who, again, is one of the 3, 4, 5 best teams in the AFC. They're not doing this against some mediocre team. They weren't doing that with Cleveland, who's still one of the best teams in the AFC. So if you're looking for a silver lining, if you're a Chiefs fan, it's week 2. They still have talent, but there is no mistaking that they're going to face that team again, and they have the blueprint. They are going to see that stuff again, and they've got to have a better answer for it.
Look, the standards have changed in Kansas City. So the conversations about this football team are not about if they can achieve greatness. We know what this team is capable of doing. So now it's about all the little things that are going to keep them from achieving that. That's why we care so much here at KC Sports Network, and that's why fans care, is because we want to see this team, we want to see this organization achieve the highest goals. So the conversations might be tough, even if they're in week 2. And yes, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of places, and a lot of things that this team needs to work on. And there's definitely some silver linings there. I'm not going to deny that. But we have to have these hard conversations, and we got to bring to light the reasons that this team could ultimately not make the Super Bowl. And there were plenty here. Even with, I think one of the things that I struggle, you talk about the young guys, man, there's a lot of veterans making a lot of mistakes this week. Yep. These are not just rookies getting their first opportunities. There were some big key mistakes. The second level of defense is not all rookies. A lot of problems there.
I was going to say, before we get into my pay Tyrann Mathieu section, which was the first one we put in there very early in that game. And before we get into the stuff, because people are pissed off and they don't want to talk about the positive stuff. They don't want to hear that right now, and I get it.
Shouldn't have to.
And they shouldn't have to. But you got to give both sides, and you got to be the rational person, like right down the middle. And you can say whatever we want right now. You can say whatever the hell we want. That was frustrating to watch, especially defensively. I'm less frustrated when I watch and guys just miss tackles because, like, you know what? Figure it out. You're going to get better at that. It's a whole lot more frustrating when it just felt like we didn't have the answer to what they were doing. And it didn't. And granted, Baltimore's very good at this. So I'm not going to say that the solutions to what they were doing is very simple. You ask and you see on social media, the people who know the game at that level says what they do with extra fullback, extra tight ends, the way that they do angles and the way they move guys around, it is incredibly difficult. It's one of the best teams in the AFC with a quarterback who's not great at throwing the ball. Like we saw that tonight, yet he still made a couple of plays with his arm, which is great. Lamar Jackson's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's just a unique challenge, and the Chiefs did not step up at all. And before we get into the positive stuff, I want to give you a chance. You talked a lot about the second level of the Chiefs defense. What is the number one thing that you see live or that you saw tonight live? You're like, that has to get better.
The gap assignment. I think the entirety of the linebacker core, just a lot of gap issues, just up and down. Every player on the linebacker level was struggling to play gap assignment. I know Matty Lane was bringing, and we might even have to ask Matty a little bit of that too, because like Nick Bolton, I don't want to completely dunk on Nick Bolton the entirety of the night. He's one of 3 linebackers that had abysmal nights. But his gap assignment and just simple stuff there, like you talked about, the run fits were really poor. And that doesn't put you in a situation to go do some of the things you're good and capable of doing, which Nick Bolton in the run game is very good. Anthony Hitchens can hit, he can tackle. Both of those guys, a lot of struggles with their run fits this week. And, I mean, they were lost, both of them, and so is Ben Neiman.
We'll come back to all of this, I'm sure, a couple of different times with Craig Stout and with Matty Lane. We're going to want to get their takes out on the defense. But the one thing that I'm going to tease for later in the show is if we play Baltimore again down the road, do you see Chris Jones playing inside more? Do you see some sort of an adjustment? I'm not going to pretend to know what that answer is, but it got exposed. It was brought up, and it was a thing in this game. So I'm not going to pretend. We can put a pin in this one and come back to it.
We can come back to it.
Let's talk a little more on the positive side. That's just Tyrann Mathieu. You knew when you got out on the field that you were going to get the instincts, the ability to make plays on the ball. That is what he's about. It's weird because I expected a Tyrann Mathieu-led defense to not have some of the issues that we saw. And so not that that's on him or whoever, they are going to figure that out. And that's the one part that's easy for me is they will figure it out. And whoever's fault that is not a fun plane ride that they are coming. It is late. They are probably not going to take off for about another 2 hours from that airport. That is not a fun trip coming back this late. But let's talk about Tyrann Mathieu, what he did. They highlighted on the broadcast. The guy just knows he knows what he's doing back there, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Well, and you saw a little bit earlier. It is.
I don't know how else to be like. It's what it's supposed to look like.
He's not only the instincts, the ball skills, the communication standpoint. Oftentimes you see him. He's the leader back there, and they missed that last week a little bit. Tyrann Mathieu almost had 3 interceptions, and that third interception, they really needed it. Yeah. They really needed that interception because nothing with that front 7 was really doing much of anything. And his impact is immeasurable. I don't know imagine where they'd be right now without Tyrann Mathieu in this game. This game isn't even a conversation potentially. If Tyrann Mathieu doesn't go out and make the plays, he came this close to getting a 3rd interception in his first game back. That kind of was the deciding factor in some ways. They needed 3. This defense needed 3 interceptions, unfortunately, but pay Tyrann.
Biting my tongue. I'm trying not to, but again, everybody who's watching, we appreciate everybody who's watching. We see all the comments coming through. We're going to start bringing some of those on. So if you have questions about it, there's a ton of them flying through right now. We will try to get to as many of those as we can. And again, talked about it off the top, but special thank you to the Bullpen Bar and Grill out here in Overland Park. We're at 135th and Quivira. It's where we're going to be for the next few weeks until our future home of these post-game shows, not just for this year, but for years to come. We'll be at the Kingdom Bar and Grill. We'll be at 127th and Antioch in Overland Park. That's where we will be down the road, but a special shout out to everybody here at the Bullpen that's been taking care of us the last couple of weeks, and we will continue to be here for the next few weeks before that. Let's switch to the other side of the ball, talk about some of the positive things that we saw and things that you can build on from an offensive standpoint looking down, that when you had to have McCole Hardman, who was a popular topic on social media this week. A lot of eyes on him and has an opportunity to get some targets, made some plays. That's a positive thing no matter how you look at it. Byron Pringle had a chance to make some plays. Some other guy, Demarcus Robinson, gets a chance with the ball in the end zone to go up and make a play. It was great to see those guys step up at a time where Tyreek didn't see the huge impact. Travis Kelce got his late, but it was great to see not say those role players, but those other guys that everybody got a chance to eat tonight.
We've had a lot of conversations this entire summer about the secondary weapons. You know, the guys outside Tyreek Hill, the guys outside Travis Kelce. Who's going to step up? Who's going to make some plays for this team? And, you know, all these guys have capabilities and abilities that will fit certain games. And it turned out all of them this week made a lot of sense. And, you know, all three of those kind of pass catchers that we've had a lot of conversation about, they all stepped up. They all did some really good things this week. You know, Byron Pringle, an outstanding finish, a 40-plus yard catch for a touchdown where, you know, it was mostly yards after the catch. Patrick Mahomes kind of had an easy job a couple times in these couple of these touchdown passes because some guys were making some plays for him. Demarcus Robinson, an excellent catch, in the end zone. McCole Hardman, highly targeted. I believe I think it might have been 8 targets. I think that, he had 8 targets this week. And, he wound up, having a pretty decent game. I think he
was tied for the lead. He and Kelce both had 8 targets.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a game that some of these secondary weapons, and we kind of talked about that a lot on the KC Laboratory. Some of these secondary weapons, this could be a game where they try to do that. And it happened. And guys stepped up, and the offense was humming for 40 minutes. Yep. 35 points in 40 minutes. I know, one was a defensive touchdown by Tyrann Mathieu.
It's the annoying part of it is from an offensive standpoint until the play at the end. Yeah, there's going to be ebbs and flows throughout the game, but it never felt like, even when we were all kind of like not trusting the defense at the end to not stop, it was like, it's fine, we're going to get the ball back. Like, not a big deal. And 2 plays later, we're in field. I looked at you, it was like, it took 10 seconds and we're in field goal range. And then I see some of the comments coming through here saying conservative Andy cost us the game. And we talked about it. And I know Matty Lane was sitting with us at the table saying, don't play for a field goal, like go score a touchdown. Tucker saying, go for the touchdown. And I'm sitting here saying, I'm good with whatever works. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, you're going to be critical if you go for the touchdown, he throws an interception, gets strip sacked, something happens. You're going to criticize. You've got Harrison Butker, just go for the field goal. That's going to be somewhat automatic at that level.
Yeah, I think they were trying to run the clock out because they didn't trust their defense. I think they were kind of trying to maybe play a little bit more conservative approach. But the ball, the Chiefs lost the game, and the ball wasn't in Patrick Mahomes' hands, and that always hurts, right? And it's not just the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball necessarily. It's the fact that they handed the ball to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He didn't protect the football after Patrick Mahomes had made 2 great plays, to get that team within field goal range like it was nothing. It was an easy pickings, and then they tried to change what they were doing. They went back to handing the football off to try to kind of manage the clock, sit on the football a little bit, play for a 40-yard field goal to win the football game, and that's what happened. A fumble. It's frustrating because the ball didn't end up in Patrick Mahomes' hands. He was turning around and handing it off.
Yeah, that's the part that's going to sting when you look back at this game. Not just when you guys go back and watch the film. You got to let me know how that goes and what that is like. But as incredibly frustrating as that is, I'm going to try to do the best segue I can right here. But one thing that is not frustrating, if you are trying to get a new house, trying to refi, whatever you go, call Fairway Independent Mortgage. They make the home loan process as simple as possible by guiding you through every step, just as they've done for the past 25 years. Call Jennifer Dixon at 816-390-8898. That's 816-390-8898. Great rates, a focus on customer service, and the fastest term times in the industry. Again, that is Fairway Independent Mortgage. Just the best I can do for something like that. You did great, buddy. That's the best I can do. We do appreciate Fairway Independent Mortgage, the Bullpen Bar and Grill, Big Cedar Golf, everybody that supports us here on the postgame show, and obviously everybody who's watching right now and hate listening. We know everybody who's out there right now is just pissed off and listening, trying to either agree with us as we're mad or they're trying to listen to make us feel better. So we're going to play both here just because that's naturally where we're at. You were fired up about that defense, and I want to give you a chance. And this is the question I had for you, and we didn't talk about this before, so I apologize for putting you on the spot. Yeah. One of the things that I said all offseason, that one of the guys that I thought was going to make a huge impact that we were going to feel is Jaron Reed. When you look at the interior defensive line, we know Chris Jones more on the outside now. What is happening there with those guys? Because, again, whether on the outside, whether they're going to the inside, there are problems all over the place. There's not that consistent just making a few negative plays to force those third and long situations.
Yeah, I don't know if they're thinking too much and if there's just a lot going on there with some of the adjustments to some of the schemes, but I don't think these guys are playing fast, and I don't think they're playing the whole point of attack, and I think they're getting pushed off the ball a lot easier than I thought they would, because this is the most stout interior defensive line that Steve Spagnuolo has had in his time here in Kansas City, and yet both of these guys, I'm going to speak to Derek Nottie and Jaron Reed, both of these guys that you kind of expected to maybe play the run a little bit, but be more stout at the point of attack. They haven't, I don't think they've held their end of the bargain entirely. I do think some of the issue could potentially be that linebacker level too. I don't want to completely, absolve the linebacker too, because some of it is just, maybe they're in their gap a little bit. Maybe with the moments they are, kind of playing the run a little bit decently and holding the point of attack. The backers aren't there making, plays and getting into the gap.
And one of the guys that we know is going to step up here, he's probably fired up. He's got red hair. He's known as the big institution. So let's welcome on Mr. Craig Stout right now to help us figure out what it is that went on during this game. So there he is, Mr. Craig Stout. Thank you for joining us on this very frustrating evening as the Chiefs lose 36-35. Craig, down in Wichita, we're up here in Overland Park. It's still good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, it's still good to see you guys, even under some less than ideal circumstances. This defense was awful. Just absolutely awful all night long. A lot of questions that we had about this defense after week one that we thought maybe Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, maybe getting Willie Gay back might evolve this defense a little bit. Well, we got 2 of the 3 back, and they might have been worse. This might be the worst performance of a Spags Chiefs defense yet. Just absolutely awful all over the field.
This is something, I will say something coming from Craig Stout, because he's often the most measured person on the KC Laboratory. He's one of the most measured people I know in my life. And this coming from him, I'm not trying to overhype this for you, Craig. It does say a lot. And it started on first down, Craig. I mean, the first down defense, just off the bat, it started on first down, didn't it?
Yeah, the Chiefs defense allowed almost 7.5 yards per play on first down. 7.5 yards. Like, that is, open that. I'll open mine too. Hang on. Let's get after this. No, just absolutely awful. And here's the funny part. That's better than it was last week. The Chiefs are averaging 7.97 yards per play on first down. This is a defense that is built to get into third and longs. Steve Spagnuolo to use his exotic coverages, exotic blitzes, allowing them to get home on the quarterback, force mistakes. We saw 2 third and long situations. Lamar Jackson throws an interception, 2 of those early in the game. They're not getting to those. They're not winning on first down. They're allowing these easy conversions on second downs. They're allowing easy first down conversions. Just awful. It's awful. You have to be able. What's the term? Ken always says this. You earn the right to rush the passer, and they are not earning that right on first and second down right now. Well, I didn't hear you guys on that one, so I'll just take this away here. Let's go again on that. Let's go again.
Can you hear me, Craig?
Yeah, I got you now.
You good? You got me now? Okay. So here's my question. Sorry about that. You know what? We are right now the Chiefs run defense of a podcast moment here. Okay.
In fairness, I had no idea what Tucker was saying, so I had no idea what's going on.
Well, I don't think the Chiefs defense had any idea what was going on anyway. Front seven. Was there any redeeming quality about the front seven from any? Did you see any bright spots from the front seven this week?
Man, I'll give Nick Bolton as an on-the-line Sam a little bit of love there. There's a couple plays that he made. I thought that Anthony Hitchens made a couple plays there on that very last drive. Actually corralled Lamar Jackson a little bit, although Lamar Jackson was not trying to get to the sidelines as much, trying to stay in bounds and run the clock, so that made it a little easier than that. After that, no. Not really. Ben Neiman was poor. The interior defensive linemen were really poor. That was supposed to be a strength for this defense. We talked about them all season long, and it just wasn't good. Defensive ends weren't particularly good. I mean, the broadcast really highlighted, Chris Jones in one of his first games as a defensive end against a rushing offense that frankly takes advantage of stiffer, slower defensive ends, and he was punished for it. Now, Mike Dana wasn't any better, so it's not like it was an upgrade to switch it out or to move him inside or anything like that. So nobody in the front seven was good, and I think that they'll admit that. Like, they missed tackles, they couldn't get off of blocks. I mean, Andy Reid even said it in his postgame presser just now. They didn't get off the blocks, they didn't control gaps. Like, you can't do that against the Ravens and expect to still hang in this game, because Roman, Lamar, and that running back group, even with a backup offensive line, like, we're not even talking about the fact that the Ravens had a backup offensive line and backup running backs. This offense still can take advantage of that just with misdirection and everything that they do. You have to be gap sound. You have to win up front. And the Chiefs defense did not do that.
All right, so from an execution perspective, Craig, I think all 11 on defense, running and pass, there was a lot of issues there. I mean, some of the basic, simple stuff. How big of a difference is just some of the basic execution in this game? If the Chiefs create, are just a little bit more basic in their execution and do some of the little things well, is the score different?
I mean, a little bit. You can't execute like that. You can't line up and blow coverages. You can't have Charvarius Ward not drop into that deep third and carrying Hollywood Brown on that play that we saw, that long touchdown, that pop pass that Lamar Jackson threw. You can't have countless missed tackles by multiple members all over the defense. Like, we're singling out Dan Sorensen because he had a ton of them, but there was a lot all throughout the front seven, a lot throughout the secondary. It's a problem, because it doesn't matter. I know a lot of people are trying to lay this at Spags' feet here, and he's certainly to blame for some of it, but it's hard to execute the game plan if you guys aren't lining up, playing it correctly, tackling the way that they need to. Like, it doesn't matter what you call on the field if people aren't running it, aren't executing it, and aren't dragging guys to the ground the way that they need to. You just get run over that way.
All right, we'll find him on Twitter at BarleyHop. Craig Stout, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know you're going to have a lot more takes. We've put the request out for the airing of grievances for the KC Laboratory episode on Monday. It's going to be a doozy. I'm looking forward to talking to you later this week.
Later, guys.
All right, that was Craig Stout. We're going to bring on Maddie Lane here in a little bit, but it's tough to listen to Craig right after a game, not have a lot more positive things to say.
I'm a little like he is so measured in his, he tries to be fair to people, and he's just disgusted. You can tell. I've been working with him for a long time, and the disdain for what he just saw on tape is very glaring. And man, it was such a disjointed effort and disorganized, and it's just so uncommon for this football team. That's what's so shocking. It's just such an uncommon occurrence to see this. This is why they fired Bob Sutton. This is why they moved on from him. These were the kind of issues that you saw in the Bob Sutton era at the end. And I love Steve Spagnuolo. I'm riding with him.
I've gotten
for sure.
3 texts telling me to fire. I have you need to fire Steve Spagnuolo.
I will. No, I ain't about that life at all.
Come on.
But I'll defend that guy. But man, this is just uncommon.
It was a bad performance. The guy went out there, did not have a good game. They've got to figure it out. And good thing you've got leaders and all the cliches that people listening don't want to hear about right now. Mm-hmm. But it's the truth that it's not about showing the leadership right now. It's about showing leadership tonight on the plane, tomorrow when they're watching film, and then moving past it and getting ready for their game next week, because things don't get any easier.
No.
They're going to face offenses. They're going to face guys who can sling the ball around, and the challenge to be completely different with Justin Herbert than it was with Lamar Jackson. So while we're talking about the negative stuff, let's go back and do a little snippet, a little 2 or 3 minutes on a positive thing. And right now we're going to go with our Big Cedar Golf best drive of the game. And so that is my cue to Tucker Franklin to get everything ready to go here on our segment for Big Cedar Golf. Big Cedar Golf is quickly becoming known as America's next great golf destination, with courses designed by some of the top names in golf, guys like Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Plan your trip right now. And the drive that we're going to talk about for the Big Cedar drive of the game was they were going back and forth. The offenses, Lamar Jackson goes up, makes a fantastic athletic play, finding a wide open receiver in the play that you guys were just talking about. Travis, we're not going up. They get the touchdown. Chiefs get the ball back. The Ravens seem like they have some momentum. Chiefs get the ball back, and best tight end to ever play the game does what the best tight end to ever play the game does.
It was the last time the Chiefs scored, not to try to be too negative about it, but
you couldn't just let it be positive for 3 minutes.
It's going to be positive here from here on out, because I think you saw one of the best touchdowns you are going to see for the entirety of the season with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. Both put an outstanding performance on that last play to try to find pay dirt. The Chiefs benefited from a penalty early on in that drive, but then Patrick Mahomes rolls right, has to scramble, has to try to find the best tight end in football, throws a little bit back into the middle of the field, and Travis Kelce does the rest. Travis Kelce makes an outstanding play, an outstanding effort, and honestly, it was a full team effort there. All 11 guys had a great moment. Trey Smith getting out of the way to try to let Travis Kelce get through, and some really good blocks down the field. Travis Kelce setting a few of those up. Outstanding effort from 2 of the best players, the 2 best players at their position, to get a big touchdown, put the Chiefs up 35 points. That's the last points of the game.
Yeah, right now we're going to bring Maddie Lane on here in a minute, but before we do that, we're going to take a quick look at some of the other shows here on the network at KC Sports Network. All right, and welcome back to the Bullpen Bar and Grill out here in Overland Park. Again, got all our Chiefs coverage, 5 shows a week. We right there are showing off the college side of our network. But we welcome on Maddie Lane. Maddie, we watched this game together. You've been listening and coming up with your measured takes for the defense, and now we're just going to give you a platform and just let you go.
Measured was a
strong word for the takes that I have right now because I'm not as calm as Craig is. I unleashed a little bit more, so I'll straight up say it. I think that the Chiefs front seven played one of the worst games in all of football that I've ever seen in 20 plus years of understanding football. Just watching what they did was bad on every level. I think Andy Reid got up on the presser and just talked about bad tackling, not being able to get off blocks. I'm watching the game. I see guys who don't even know what gap they're supposed to be in. I'm watching linebackers sprint into the same gap that the unblocked defensive end is in, just giving wide open rushing lanes to everybody out there. It was pitiful, and I got to give the Ravens some credit. They came out and probably ran 13 different running schemes. They ran 13 different running plays minimum in this game, just throwing everything at the Chiefs. They had no idea how to stop it, so it was hard. It was a difficult game, guys, but that was bad. You can't tell me there's a single bright spot in that front seven that I can really buy into.
I don't want to say it's unscouted necessarily, but I know that the Ravens tried to go away from some of what their identity has been the last couple of years against the Raiders. So there might have been some things maybe that the Chiefs, I don't want to say they didn't prepare for, but maybe I wonder if the time allocation is the same that you normally should devote to some of the things that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have done in that era. I almost wonder if there was some time devoted to some of the other stuff that the Ravens put on tape against the Raiders.
Oh, absolutely. I think we talked about it. I mean, on the lab, or we talked about it off, podcast too. The Ravens came out with a relatively normal, relatively traditional attack versus the Raiders.
Drop back.
Yeah, it clearly didn't work. They ran a ton of inside zone. They even got away from that, did outside zone. All of a sudden against the Chiefs, you were getting every read option under the book. You're getting guys pulling from the play side to the backside, anticipating they're going to pull the ball. It was hard. It was a difficult game to see as the Chiefs, but I think that the Chiefs just had no idea how to stop it. I don't think there was as much of a tackling issue as kind of Andy Reid talked about. I just think guys weren't getting there. Nobody was available to miss a tackle because they were all busy either getting blocked or running the wrong direction.
One of the things that we haven't even talked about yet, Matty, and I think you actually illuminated that on Twitter. We haven't even mentioned the fact that this was a beat-up offensive line that the Chiefs just went up against. Ronnie Stanley didn't even play. And I think you said a backup center was playing right tackle for the Ravens this week.
Yeah, the best player on this Ravens offensive line is Kevin Zeitler. He's by far their best player, and he's still good, not great. He's no longer the same guy he was a couple years ago. Their best offensive lineman is a good player, and they just ran the Chiefs front seven off the field. If you want to use a basketball analogy, they kicked them off the court so bad everybody had to leave and go home before, they could even say a word. It was bad. And you have a backup left tackle playing who looked terrible. He probably got Max Crosby near max money because he was so bad last week. That's how bad he was. You have a backup center who couldn't even play beat out a center last year that couldn't snap a football. He was that guy's backup. He's playing right tackle, and you would never know watching this game that those were the two offensive tackles out there.
So you can look at the box score, and I know that you can always make fun of box scores. You can look at third down and red zone defense, and it'll tell you the story of a lot of what happened. Ravens 6 of 11, over 50% converting on third down, and they were 4-4 in the red zone. Well, I think you lose by 1 point makes a difference.
The Chiefs are now 9 for 9 in the red zone on defense, giving up a touchdown now. They can't stop anybody from scoring. And that was a huge thing they talked about all camp, all offseason, was getting better at their red zone defense. And we can talk all we want about Willie Gay not being there and how that might hurt this team based on their plans. Willie Gay's not taking you from 100%, failure rate in the red zone to respectable. He's a fast, very good linebacker, but there's no guarantee he makes you better. That's 100% touchdown rate when you red zone. That's just, you can't do that.
So what's the level of the defense that disappointed you the most this week?
The linebackers. I don't see anything the linebackers are doing in particular. Anthony Hitchens looks like he's slow to process again. He looks like this is going back to his first year in the Steve Spagnuolo defense or in Bob Sutton's defense. That he's not only trying to process what the offense is doing, but he's trying to figure out what he's supposed to be doing as well. I think Nick Bolton, when you put him on the line of scrimmage or you run blitz him, he is very good at a very specific linear path. But when you got him isolated in space, it didn't look great. When it was in coverage, it was difficult. And I think in the second half, the Ravens did a great job isolating him and finding a way to get him to pick the wrong gap. And Lamar Jackson just took the other one over and over again. So just the second level has no star power. And even when Willie Gay comes back, he's a second-year guy that didn't play much as a rookie. Who's your playmaker on the second level? I don't know if the Chiefs have one, and you kind of need one on every level in the NFL now.
Well, I think the Willie Gay injury was illuminated a little bit here because the athleticism that he presented. He was having an outstanding. Honestly, he was having an outstanding preseason, but the defensive line was having an outstanding preseason too.
Willie Gay being healthy for this doesn't change this. All of a sudden it doesn't go out there, and all of a sudden this defense is playing significantly better.
Right.
I'm not going to be significantly disappointed, and I'll be honest because I'm trying to put my thoughts together, so I'm trying not to swear. But I'm not going to be overly upset about Chris Jones being in the situation he was, because I don't expect Chris Jones, in the situations he was in, to make the right read and make those kinds of plays. If he did, I think all of us our jaws would be on the floor right now if he went out and was making some of those plays in space the ways they were asking him to do it. What I was getting frustrated is it seemed like they kept asking him to do that, and they couldn't figure out a way to not put him in that position.
I think that's huge. The Chiefs did not do a good job last week or this week finding a way to get Chris Jones out of being isolated on plays to where he could be read and having to play not only two gaps, but play two gaps and to the sideline. They're asking him to play the entire C gap all the way through the D gap to the outside. That's hard for any defensive end, let alone a guy just making that transition. My disappointment, though, is there was a couple times where the Ravens did have to drop back and pass. And after the first 2 3rd and longs, it became very clear that nobody on this Chiefs defensive line was going to make a play. That includes Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Jaron Reed, all these big-name guys they brought in. Even on 3rd and long, when you know it's a pass, they couldn't beat the not great blocker in front of them. They could not take advantage of that ever. The only pressures came on stunts or blitzes. That was the only time they got pressure, and then that usually came with a little bit of a coverage breakdown behind it.
Maddie, I want to talk a little bit about the offense here.
We probably should.
There's a lot of things to unpack there, too, because we talked a lot about the Ravens. What identity are they going to keep? Are they going to try to be themselves? Are they going to try to do some of the things that they normally do? Are they going to blitz Mahomes into oblivion? They're going to play a lot of man coverage. But I think the back half of that game, in the last 20 minutes of that game, we saw a lot of 3-man rushes, and it didn't look like the Chiefs handled it particularly well.
So what the Ravens were doing in the second half, the first half, they only blitzed about 18% of the time, I think I saw, which is like well under half of what they normally do.
Yeah.
By the end of the game, they were rushing 3, and they were using either a linebacker or Jason Owa was coming off as a delayed blitz, usually on a looper. They were trying to catch Patrick Mahomes stepping up into the pocket. They did a good job adjusting to Mahomes not escaping out the back door. They did a good job that he was stepping up into a good pocket. They were sending a looper coming around through the middle to come in and make that play. That's how we got the Mahomes interception. That got a couple other pressures on him. I think Mahomes just has to calm down a little bit in these situations. So I do think there was room to maneuver. He was just trying to play really quick, get towards the line of scrimmage as fast as possible, and they were able to make them pay a little bit for doing that.
Travis Kelce finished this game with 7 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown, and in this game became the fastest tight end in NFL history to reach 8,000 career yards. So if you're looking for some positives, looking for some things, guess what? Travis Kelce is still fucking good at football.
Well, and on the top of that, the Ravens treated him like Calvin Johnson in his prime at the line of scrimmage sometimes. They literally lined 2 defensive backs over him like he was a gunner on punt team and said, hey, we're going to double jam you and just play inside and outside leverage and man coverage, and he still had 109 yards and looked unstoppable most of the night.
All right, Maddie, I know you didn't want this team to play for a field goal, but you kind of saw they got started to get on the backs in the Ravens side of the field, and it looked like some things got adjusted in the first play. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, turn around, hand the ball to Clyde Edwards-Helaire after 2 big pass plays.
The entire game, the Ravens couldn't really stop the Chiefs from passing the ball. I mean, yes, there was the interception, but for the most part, the Chiefs were moving the ball at will through the air. You got that. We get to that 2-minute warning. I looked right at you guys and I said, they are going to play for the field goal. That's what Andy Reid's going to do, but please don't do it. Like, that's just where it's going to come down to. You can't play for the field goal there, and coming out of the 2-minute warning, like, we're going to run this handoff. I do think that the ball didn't get fully in Clyde Edwards-Helaire's arm. I don't think he was holding it great, which whether you want to blame him, Pat, just whatever the play is, that's kind of up in the air. It's a team thing. But the play call just drove me crazy. It was unfortunate to see Joe Thuney couldn't help Creed Humphrey on the inside, get back outside, kind of let a guy slip right through and force the fumble. It was just a bad play overall. It's just the mentality. I think you have to go for a touchdown there. You can kick the field goal and win the game. I get it, but you're moving the ball so well through the air. You can keep playing the quick passing game and get down the field and run the clock. I mean, you just did it to get to the 2-minute warning. Why change from that? The Ravens weren't giving you a please run the ball at us look. They weren't changing their defense. They'd run the same thing all night. Just keep throwing the ball.
They weren't in field goal range. Like, they were kind of fringe field goal range anyway at that point. They weren't in it. It wasn't like it was going to be a chip shot to win the game. I felt like they should have just continued to put the ball in the best player in the world's hands, Patrick Mahomes. 2 plays before that worked great. They got into Ravens territory immediately. And then what happens? Clyde, I'm going to be scratching my head about that for the rest of the week.
Wait, and if you want to go back and look and you want to see linebackers playing 7 yards off the line of scrimmage and a 3-man line and say, hey, we just had the numbers, we had to take it, so be it. But that wasn't what happened. The Ravens were still having to play and honor the run for just that. The Chiefs could run the 4-minute offense, run all the time off, kick a field goal and win. So the Ravens couldn't give up free yardage on the ground. They weren't trying to, and the Chiefs just kind of ran right into it. I really hope this wasn't a situation where somebody came to Andy and just said, hey, we've run the ball 12 times all night, and he's just trying to put an extra run in there. I don't think he would at the 2-minute warning part. Yeah. It's just it didn't make sense with the game plan for the entire fourth quarter. The entire fourth quarter was throwing the ball, and then all of a sudden in this situation they decided to go with the run. It's hard. It's easy to play hindsight now, but like I said, we all kind of knew it at the beginning. Don't play for the field goal at that point in time, and it just unfortunately resulted in a fumble on a run play of all things.
Well, they stalled out for offensively 20 minutes. Like, this is not an offense that was humming and firing on all cylinders for a third of the game, and they kind of pivot back to trying to turn around and hand the football off a little bit. I don't love the game management at the end, and I know that's saying a lot about Andy Reid, who's one of the best coaches. But I don't love the decisions made here. I would have liked to see them get a little farther into the red and get close to that red zone before they start playing that game management. The Ravens are out of timeouts, or they have one timeout. I think they were out of timeouts at that point, or did they have one?
I think they were out, but it was out or one.
They didn't have enough to. They didn't have enough to really force the Chiefs' hands too much from a game management perspective.
Yeah, no matter where, if the Chiefs got into field goal range, that game is over, or depends on if the kick is made or not. You don't have to start running the clock out at like the 50-yard line or just past it where they were. You can very easily move the ball down to the 30 or the 25 before starting to just worry about running the clock out. So put the best players in the best positions to make plays, and that was Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes over and over
Patrick
again.
Mahomes, yeah.
Please don't give the ball off to somebody else at this point in time.
All right, before we let everybody go, we appreciate everybody for tuning in, especially when we're all pissed off, except for the 19 probably Ravens fans in the comments talking trash. You know what? Enjoy it. You guys got a big win at your home place, Sunday Night Football. We're going to see you again. Before we let you go, Maddie, final take.
Trey Smith's really good at football, guys. I'm going to end it positively. I think Trey Smith, I think last week Creed Humphrey probably played a better game than Trey Smith did, but both played really well. Trey Smith was just more exciting. This one, I really think Trey Smith played excellent. I mean, whether it was in the run game and the pass game, he was cleaning guys out of the interior. The kind of help that he was giving Lucas Niang against Justin Houston a lot of the night was phenomenal. I think he was putting guys in the dirt left and right. I mean, we talked about it in that Travis Kelce amazing touchdown play. Trey Smith gets downfield somehow, avoids Travis Kelce coming back across the field, then pancakes the linebacker chasing him. And that was like the third pancake we saw tonight. So I think Trey Smith, if you're a Chiefs fan, we all know this already, right? We know he's good. He's good at football. And he just looks better and better each and every week. So if you want to hang your hat on something new, hang it on Trey Smith. And this whole offensive line, I think, as a whole, played actually really well in this game.
Kent, what's your final take?
Well, this team really hasn't had a ton of adversity the last couple of years. You think about how easy it was for them to get to the Super Bowl, and I know they got stomped in the Super Bowl, but leading up to that moment, it was the Raiders game that they kind of lost a little bit of focus, and it seemed like they really weren't all the way into it. But there wasn't a ton of moments like this that they have to look in the mirror. They definitely had a taste in their mouth the entirety of the offseason, but there was a little bit of circumstantial stuff around that with the offensive line, all that stuff. This team. This is what this team is moving forward. This is the team that they've got to take into February if they want to win a Super Bowl. So I do think that there is going to be some opportunities for them to look in the mirror and have some opportunities to, try to come out of this and get better. And this is probably one of the bigger gut punches for this football team in the last couple of years, outside of the Super Bowl, obviously. But regular season, we haven't seen this kind of adversity. I don't think it's a little bit different. Everybody's got to look in the mirror. And I think this could ultimately be a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're going to all rationalize it in that way. And the reason that we can do that is because of the cliches that we talk about all the time. And we talk about the leadership and this and then that. It's week 2. They have all the time to figure it out. And they have the pieces in place that have proven throughout their careers to be able to overcome weeks like this. And as much as we can sit here and say the defense is the worst performance you have ever seen by any defense ever, they lost by 1 point to one of the best teams in the AFC on the road in prime time. It was a game that was always going to mean more to Baltimore than it is to the Chiefs. Maybe that's just cocky Chiefs fan saying that, but at the end of the day, as long as everybody stays healthy, the Chiefs are going to be in this at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So as much as we want to freak out about this and say we can't win the Super Bowl without this, 2019 was not that long ago. They lost to Indy, they lost to Houston, they lost to Tennessee, and everyone thought everybody had to get fired. We had to get rid of everybody because that's just everything has to be everything right now. It's week 2. They didn't play well. This game sucked. If you're not Travis Kelce, you're not records. It sucked on every level because even all the stats of Mahomes never losing in September, no interceptions, all those freaking things, we don't even get to talk about those anymore. But the good news is we got another 47 minutes to cry about this one, to be upset about this one, and then we all get to move on as fans, right? That's the way this all works?
Yeah, totally. We're definitely not airing the grievances on the KC Laboratory live tomorrow, Monday at 6:30. That's
You're
not
catching
happening.
what I'm throwing. You are catching what I'm throwing. We appreciate everybody again for tuning in for this late night show. Appreciate Maddie Lane, Kent Swanson, Tucker behind the glass, or not glass. I don't know why I said that.
There's
behind
glass on the
lights.
iPad. We're good.
Yeah, behind the
Yeah, you're
iPad.
good.
So we're good to go. Again, appreciate everybody for listening, for supporting what we're doing here at KC Sports Network. We will catch you next week as the Chiefs take on the Chargers at noon. So that'll be an earlier show. And again, catch these guys along with Craig Stout on the Laboratory live tomorrow night at 6:30.
Chiefs, guys, get ready for it.
We'll see you guys. Thank you. Be good to people.